What's up, Vetters? Patrick here with Vetted. Today we're talking about this.
I think we're all here for a reason, and I think we're here to experience something very strange and profound. And there's an event that we're building up to, and it sounds insane that people could live for 30,000 years, but it doesn't. And there was these very slender, tall, human-like things that were talking to me. They weren't gray. They were kind of like pinkish, like us. Everything is like, whoa, just messing around. There's a 40-meter object that's in that labyrinth. That's in some vast corridor that's metallic.
In 1975, he brought a BBC film crew to explore what he thought was, maybe an alien cave.
All right, Vetters, please hit that like button. That really helps out the videos. And of course, if you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button. All right, so first of all, I just want to say thank you to everyone who went and subscribed to Inside 764, the most dangerous cult you've never heard of. I really appreciate all the support. Y'all crushed it. We had almost 1,000 people subscribe, and I really, really appreciate it. So again, I'll put a link in the description if you want to check it out, if you don't know what I'm talking about. Thank y'all so much. All right, so let's jump into this video because we have a lot to cover, y'all. This is the very, very anticipated interview with Joe Rogan on Jesse Michel's show, American Alchemy. He's got his brand new set, the UFO set, whole thing. It's awesome. Okay, so we're going to jump into a lot of different topics today. Joe Rogan had a lot to say. So did Jesse Michels, and they had an absolute amazing conversation. I really enjoyed watching the episode. I'm going to put a link in the description to the full interview, but these are just some of the highlights from that show.
I think we're all here for a reason, and I think we're here to experience something very strange and profound. And there's an event that we're building up to, and I think that's why there's this focus on disclosure.
So a lot of people online were talking about this in particular, like, holy cow, right? Like, what is Joe Rogan talking about? This is leading up to an event, right? Something's happening. People were like, oh, 2027. He's talking about 2027, the alien threat invasion. I don't think that's what he's talking about at all. I mean, he doesn't really specify. They don't really get into it, but I don't think Joe Rogan is behind any of that crap, if you ask me. But very interesting take as far as what is our purpose here? Are we leading up to some event? I got to keep the mics on. So let me thank the Pendragon Cycle for sponsoring today's video. The new trailer for the Pendragon Cycle just dropped, and I'm reacting to it. From the visionary mind of Stephen R. Lawhead comes the Pendragon Cycle, a breathtaking new series that finally fills the aching void in epic fantasy. This is Arthurian legend reborn, not the familiar tale of the king, but the origin story that started it all. Shot with jaw-dropping cinematic scope, every frame feels like a big-budget theatrical event. Sweeping landscapes, colossal battles that thunder across the screen, practical sets and costumes so authentic you can almost smell the mist and iron, and magic that crackles with raw, tangible power. This is high fantasy at its most immersive, a vast, lived-in world dripping with history, prophecy, and ancient bloodlines. The attention to detail is staggering. The atmosphere is thick enough to touch. The Pendragon Cycle isn't just a series, it's the foundation of the entire Arthurian saga, told on a scale we haven't seen in a long time. If you've been starving for a new fantasy epic that looks, feels, and hits like a cinematic masterpiece, this is it. The king is coming. The cycle begins now. Pendragon Cycle Rise of the Merlin premieres exclusively on Daily Wire Plus January 22nd, 2026. Please click the link in the description to watch the full trailer now. All right, so let's move on.
I think it's a hotline. I really do. I think DMT is the hotline to the universe, and I think whatever it's explaining to you, it's trying to give you some insight as to how things work, and that you're living on a very surface level of an infinite stack of consciousness and interactions and just particles and subatomic particles that make up the universe. But it's critical for you to think that your role is very important. It's critical for you to get obsessed with things and to get FOMO and to be going on Instagram and feel like you're missing out. And it's critical because that's what encourages innovation.
So DMT, right? Joe Rogan's favorite thing, one of his favorite things to do. And it's interesting that he says that, a hotline to the universe, right? So a lot of people who have done DMT or experimented with ayahuasca have said similar things, right? And there's all this talk about people having shared experiences, right? Which is what we consider to be reality. So that's kind of interesting. Imagine if a bunch of people were having the same dreams, right? That would be interesting. This is kind of the same thing, right? So I don't know. They talk about it a lot, and he goes through his first experience in the interview as well. So I highly recommend watching that part. It's really interesting. For one, I stay away from that stuff, to be honest with you. I feel like I'm just too old. I know Joe Rogan's in way better shape, and he's got doctors and different things. I'm a little worried to do things like that at this point. My 20s was for experimenting with mind altering things, right? At my age, I don't know, really just don't feel like going down that path, to be honest with you. But it is interesting. I guess if it was proven that it was a hotline to the universe, I may try it, right? But until that's like provable fact, I'll let other people try it, report back, and then I'll be interested about it. All right, so let's move on to the very next thing. This is interesting.
And it sounds insane that people could live for 30,000 years, but it doesn't. Here's why it doesn't. What we can do now, just a rudimentary stuff that we can do now, prolongs physical health far beyond where it ever was before. And then when you're talking about stuff like hyperbaric chamber therapy, there was a study out of Jerusalem, I believe it was, where they did a protocol where they put people on hyperbaric treatment. There was 90 days. They had to do 60 sessions in 90 days. At the end of those 60 sessions, they measured their telomeres. Their telomeres, which is a direct sign of cellular aging. The shorter your telomeres are, the closer you are to death. Their telomeres had lengthened that was...
No way.
Yes, that was commensurate with a 20-year difference in their age.
What?
Yes.
Lengthened?
Yes.
I didn't know you could lengthen telomeres.
I've done it. I've done that therapy. I did that exact therapy. Yeah. I've done it a couple times.
So living for 30,000 years. Again, this is a great Joe Rogan interview here, right? We've already talked about an upcoming event. DMT is a hotline to the universe. People live in 30,000 years. Oh, there's so much more we got to get to in this interview as well. But imagine that, extending our life, our biological life, right? Just the same body you have, living 30,000 years is insane. It almost feels like that would just get boring, right? Wouldn't it? I don't know, maybe not. You know what I mean? It just feels like that would be too long, considering how we pass time. But, there's always this thought that we would become biological, or like with, mechanical, I guess is, I don't know the right way to put that. Like, we would start adding different robot parts and things and wires and chips and this is how we could extend our life. We become sort of biomechanical, right? That would extend our life. Or we upload our consciousness to, a server, and then we're just in different avatars we can switch in and out of, right? But this idea that your own body that you have, you can extend that. And at what if, I could see that getting out of hand. What if people start doing that stuff when people are kids, right? Parents start doing that to their kids, and they're trying to keep their kids young forever. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, like, how do you age? Are you 35 for most of your life, for 29,000 years? Like, how does that work, right? Just feels like that could get out of hand. And you ever seen those vampire movies where people live thousands of years and they're just alone and, barren and walking through the land alone with a samurai sword and, it's just like, you know what I mean? Like, it just, if not everyone is living like that around you, that would be an issue, because everyone you love would pass away, right? Again, it only makes sense if everyone around you is living the same way. Just like in comparatively speaking, like Imagine if today most people lived one day, but then you were the guy that lived to be 95, right? That's kind of how it would be. So I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. All right, so let's move on to talk about the age of disclosure.
I had Dan Farah on the podcast yesterday.
How was that?
It was great. For people who don't know, Dan made this new documentary, The Age of Disclosure, which is excellent. It's one of the very best documentaries on the whole UAP, UFO phenomenon that I think I've ever seen. And there's no real footage in it, maybe a couple minutes of footage of like the Go Fast or the gimbal. But really, most of what it's about is high-level intelligence operatives explaining what they know and
Extremely
what they've been
high
told.
level.
Yes.
People like Woolsey and James Clapper, like these guys who are like DNI level, like overseeing all of the intel agencies, Brennan,
Yes.
you know, all these people. And
Marco
presidents,
Rubio, to his credit, I think his involvement was huge, you know, because it's the current administration, his involvement and his urgency.
Schumer, Rubio, all those guys are like, look, a bunch of freaking high-level officers came to us, and either they're crazy or this shit's real.
Most of these people at some point, or maybe even currently, have held very high clearances and high positions within our government.
So this is one of the things that Dan and I talked about. He firmly believes that both the United States and China has retrieved these crashed vehicles, and that they are also in this back engineering program. They're in a back engineering program of their own, and there is a race. And he, you know, people talk about it like it's the Manhattan Project on steroids, but I've heard that about AI too, right? But which might also be true, and they might also be connected in some way. I think what Rubio is concerned with is that China develops this technology first. And the only way that the United States is really going to catch up is if we open this up. And we open it up and remove all the ridicule.
So, of course, Joe Rogan had to bring up the age of disclosure. He absolutely loves this documentary. He did interview Dan Farah. I did make a video about it. I'll put a link in the description. Go check it out. Yeah, I mean, he's got a lot to say about it, right? He's really nice. But one point in particular that he mentions is something that's a little bit divisive about this, regardless of the documentary, just this conversation in the UFO community, especially about government UFO disclosure, and specifically American government UFO disclosure, right? What if all these people, they've done bad things, should they be forgiven? You know, given amnesty?
And that layer of ridicule is powerful, man. People don't like to be thought of as a fool, you know, and I think that holds us back. And if the United States, like, if first of all, they're going to need some sort of an amnesty thing. This is one of the things that we talked about. They're going to need, because for sure there was lying to Congress, for sure there's misappropriation of funds, and probably some corruption. Like when you have no oversight, billions, if not $1 trillion, like for sure somebody got some money they shouldn't have got. You're going to have to make all that okay. You're going to have to say, in the interest of national security and the future of the human race, fuck all that. You're going to have to do that. And if they don't do that, we're going to have a real problem, because these gatekeepers are going to continue to gatekeep, because their lives depend on this. If they release this, they could find themselves in jail without any amnesty, in jail for the rest of their lives. Like, we don't know how much money was spent. We don't know how much lying to Congress there was. We have no idea how many felonies there were. We don't have no idea. Let's assume that crash retrieval programs were real and that back engineering programs were successful. So you're not going to give this stuff evenly to all these different defense contractors. So if you give one defense contractor one object, and all of a sudden they have this massive advantage, and then the other defense contractor winds up going under, as many of them have gone out of business, well, now you have a major lawsuit on your hands. You know, you have all sorts of, and then probably people are going to go to jail if it's a just legal system.
100%. Yeah. And for, I think, the cynics out there who might just want to put a minus sign against anybody coming from the intelligence world and saying things, we're not even necessarily being idealistic about their motivations. We're just saying that it's probably national security runs the day.
It's kind of a very hot topic, to be honest with you, because I don't know how I feel about it. It's almost one of those things where, like, I'd have to know everything they did first to know whether or not to give them amnesty. Or is that just the best way forward? right? Is that really worth it to humanity to just forgive these people? Maybe it is, but maybe it's not. Let me know what you think down in the comments.
I'm not as dumb as the dumbest people I know, but I know Elon's a friend of mine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm friends with a lot of like very brilliant people. There's levels to this thing, you know. Like I had Palmer Luckey on the podcast
so
the other day.
Yeah,
you start talking to him, you go, "Oh, okay. Well, there's levels to this, you know." And there's really fucking smart people in this world, and I'm not one of them.
Now, this is something very interesting because people think, you know, Joe Rogan's an idiot, right? And he even admits it himself, right? In a lot of ways. Even in this interview, he goes through it. And Jesse, you know, honestly pushes back and like, dude, you're not that dumb. Like, what are you talking about? You have a lot of knowledge about a lot of things. You've interviewed a lot of people. And Joe Rogan explains it in a way that honestly, I would explain it the same way. It's like, there's levels to this, right? And I get that. And he brings up Palmer Luckey, right? Which coincidentally, I saw the interview he did on Rogan, but I saw an interview he did with Logan Paul again, where he brought up something super interesting about UAP. And again, it does make you think there's just some people on another level, because check out what he said here.
UAPs, Palmer Luckey. You see these videos.
The unidentified aerial phenomena.
Yep. What goes through your mind? What are these things? They're obviously real. They defy physics as it seems. What do you think is happening?
Well, look, I'm probably having conversations that are beyond what an ordinary person would have. But at the same time, I'll tell you this, I'm just being honest. I have not seen any of the disclosure that people want, right? Like what people want is they want disclosure of what is out there.
Yep.
I'm engaged on the periphery. I'll tell you why. It's not even a secret. So a lot of the most compelling evidence for various UAP incidents has been limited to one sensor, meaning like something goes by and a radar sees it, or something goes by and a IR, like a thermal camera sees it.
Yep.
The problem with that is it's possible to spoof certain sensors. It's possible to even tamper with their feeds. It's possible to make things that trick them into seeing things that aren't actually there. And so, but here's the thing. It's quite easy to trick one sensor. It's very hard to trick multiple sensors of different types that overlap with each other. For example, if I see something with a radar and with an image, like an imaging sensor, it's hard to make something that can trick both of them into thinking that it's something moving really fast, really high, is at some temperature. It's very difficult to do that. So what is really important is this concept called multimodal sensor fusion. You want different sensor modes to be fused together and covering things at the same time. What we really need is more multimodal tracks of these things, meaning where you have like radar, visible spectrum, IR, MWIR.
You're absolutely right. It makes total sense.
And those are going to be the most useful scans, because then you can be certain it's not tampered with, it's not fake, it's not spoofed.
I think that's fascinating, right? And that's good advice. Why are we not doing that, right? Because you see, he's kind of making the point that visual contact, like eyewitness testimony and then a radar, that's not enough. You need multi, whatever he called it, right? Modular or whatever, I don't even know, different systems. That's really hard to spoof. That's hard to fake. But one, system is really easy to fake. So that got me thinking, right? Like those cases where we got it on radar, we tracked it on radar. Yeah, but that doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter. Especially nobody even sees it with their eyes. And even if they do, you just got one system that's catching it. That can be faked. That can be spoofed, right? I mean, we were doing stuff like that back in the 1940s. All right, so let's move on to the next thing, which is them talking about a dream that Joe Rogan had, where he explained it on a podcast episode with Eric Weinstein. And at the very beginning of the show, people thought he was saying he got abducted. We were like, oh, Joe Rogan got abducted. I made a video about it that hardly anybody watched, to be honest with you. I think people just thought it was bullshit. But he sort of explains it a little bit more. And like, he doesn't think he was abducted, but he's also not entirely sure. He thinks it's a very weird dream. So I don't know. Have you heard about this?
You had a dream.
Yeah.
And this was a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
You had Brett Weinstein on, great evolutionary biologist, and you started off the episode with this trippy dream you had. You want to describe it?
It was the weirdest dream I've ever had in my life because it was the most realistic dream and is the only dream that I can ever remember. I sleep really well. Like, I'm one of those guys, I can go to sleep on a pile of rocks. I can always sleep. It drives my wife crazy because she has a hard time sleeping and I can just conk out. I could not go back to sleep. It's the only dream I can remember that I couldn't go back to sleep. I don't think I've ever had that happen to me before. Where I woke up at like 3 a.m. or whatever it was, and I was like, I'm up now. Like, there's no way. I laid in bed, I think, for like an hour, and then I just went to the gym. I was like, there's no way I'm going back to sleep. It was very strange. It was very strange because it was like, what is this? It wasn't like a regular dream where like, oh, you're dreaming. It seems like vague and weird and kind of, opaque. It was vivid. It was very strange. And there was these very slender, tall, human-like things that were talking to me. They weren't gray. They were kind of like pinkish, like us. They were, like Caucasian-looking creatures.
Again, like, dreams can be so real. I get that. I've been there. I've woken up from a dream, like, in an emotional response. Like, I lived through it. And I think we all just feel dreams differently, but Joe Rogan is trying to separate this dream from any other dream he's ever had, right? So I get it. I don't know. But we don't understand dreams. We don't understand the mind. We don't understand consciousness.
So this dream, but it's like they're holding these reptilians at bay in the water or something, and maybe there's something.
It seemed very symbolic, whatever it was, because it was the only part of the dream that was kind of vague. Like, they were kind of like crocodiles or something, but it was weird. Like, they were feeding them, but they had like flimsy barriers in front of these things to keep, and they were like keeping them. It was almost like letting me know, like, hey, this is you're really close to getting fucked up, and we're doing our best to stop this from happening. But that's just me reading into it. But whatever it was, they were very clearly trying to scare me and then play. We're just kidding. Everything was like, whoa, just messing around. There was a couple of those moments where I was like, okay, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to get me accustomed to interacting with you? Yeah. Like, what is this? Because I was very weirded out.
And then this part here with the, crocodiles, reptilian things in the water that are like sort of blocking him and keeping him from that. I don't know. It's like separate from the beings, which he describes as kind of like human, but not human. Like, it's just strange.
If you look at ancient hominids versus modern humans, our heads are larger, our bodies are smaller. They're more slender. There's no need for muscle. There's no need to physically move things. These things seem very slim. They seem very slim, and God, I want to say they weren't naked, right? But they had like some sort of a suit on, but they were very genderless. Like, there was no defining that's a boy, that one's a girl. There was none of that.
I mean, what he's describing is super interesting, like the Greys, right? And people have always thought, big bulbous heads, right? Thin bodies, all of the, that would be humans in the future. Because as we start to, automate things around us, that unless you work out all the time, you're essentially, we're essentially just going to shrink down, and get bigger brains and smaller bodies and, that sort of thing. So, like, is he describing time travelers or just these gray aliens, right? Who are wearing clothes that match? I mean, that's not that unusual, but I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. Have you ever had a dream like this? All right, now let's talk about Egypt.
Well, you know about the labyrinths that they found in Egypt?
No. Oh, the Ben Van Kerkwicks?
Yeah.
That is so trippy.
The 40-meter metallic object that's shaped like a Tic Tac that's under the ground is a 40-meter object that's in that labyrinth, that's in some vast corridor, that's metallic.
So crazy.
It's one solid piece. It's 40 meters.
So crazy.
But one of the most interesting facts that came out of this scan was it seems like in this massive central atrium that's this one big giant open rooms 40, 50 meters long, that connects to all of these levels. There seems to be this unidentified metallic object that's freestanding in this room. It's about 40 meters long, and it seems to be tic-tac shaped, is what this report said. So
it's a fucking UFO. There's a UFO in Egypt.
Aliens did it.
Have you ever asked anyone that has any inkling of any idea of where they got them or how they got them?
At least one of them was part of an archaeological dig. So it's old. At least one of them is old. I don't know if it was the one I worked on, but I remember something to do with an archaeological dig.
Whoa.
So that means it's not just old, it's ancient.
What is that? We need to go down and figure out what that is.
And the crazy thing is, Ben Van Kerkwick's episode, can't recommend it enough, Uncharted X, and it's all about this labyrinth. What happened was they put up a dam. And when they put up a dam to help the farmers out, they diverted the water, and the water filled up this labyrinth. And so, I know. And that's the 1960s.
This labyrinth that like Herodotus and Pliny the Elder say was like the grandest chamber.
Greater than Giza.
Greater than Giza. Yeah, that's what everybody who studies this says, that like the cherry on top are the pyramids, but it's really this underground city that they're studying. And then you have Zahi Hawass being like, it's bullshit. It's like,
it was the national project. That's how they did it. He's silly. But, you know, it's good to have a guy like that on, because you get to see, that's the other side, the ridiculous dogmatic side that doesn't want to accept the possibility that there's a lot of mystery here, a lot of mystery.
So much.
And so they're very opposed to this labyrinth thing too, but you can't deny it.
So this is interesting, and I've covered this in a video as well, because Ben brought it up months and months ago. They allegedly found this 40-foot sort of metallic tic-tac buried in Egypt there, right? And these labyrinths that are underneath. And that's what people say about this. That's what's so special. The pyramids are the cherry on top. It's what's underneath that is the actual sundae, if you will, right? That's fascinating. And I want to know what's going on with this tic-tac, especially this metallic 40-foot tic-tac. Tic-tac just keeps getting used in that shape. It is very, very interesting. I highly recommend that episode that Joe Rogan did with Ben. Really, really interesting.
Let's imagine that a society, let's be open-minded, and a society as sophisticated as the people that lived in Africa that were able to move stones that weighed 80, 90 tons, 500 miles through the mountains with no roads, perfectly align them to true north, south, east, and west, 2,300,000 stones in one pyramid alone. And now there's real evidence that there's structures under the pyramids that might go as deep as 2 kilometers.
That look like an energy grid.
With columns and coils around the columns. I'm like, what? So if they were capable of doing that, imagine what their health technology was.
Yeah.
Maybe they had cracked all the things that we cracked, plus 1,000 years.
You know, I just interviewed the guy that did the synthetic aperture radar scans.
The Italian guys?
Yeah, the Italian guys. I went to Italy, actually.
Oh.
Filippo Biondi.
There are these structures, tubes, huge tubes that are descending underneath. And we have noticed that these tubes has a sort of spiral nature.
Mm.
We have measured approximately over 1 kilometer of depth.
Over a kilometer of depth?
Over depth, yeah.
Wow. And I came in not knowing, you know, how serious or rigorous he was. And I came out being like, this guy does, I'm pretty sure he couldn't really talk about it, but work with the Italian military. And so this thing, synthetic aperture radar, Doppler tomography, is used in commercial use cases where money is on the line. It's used to map magma chambers inside volcanoes. And I think it's used in some like spooky military use cases where people's lives are on the line.
Yeah, they want to find where the bunkers are. Yeah.
100%.
100%.
And so you can chat GPT this stuff, but because there's not a ton of data on the instrumentation, and it'll spit out all sorts of wrong answers. But I felt like I went pretty deep with this guy, and there is 100% something underneath the pyramids in that shape. The coils, the columns. He doesn't know what the material is. He's very honest about that. He doesn't know what the function is. Is it the Christopher Dunn hydrogen power plant thing? He doesn't know. But there is something underneath there, and it's 8 columns, and they're coiling. And he says he goes a kilometer deep. He says tens of meters is where they're high confidence, but he says 1,000 meters.
Just the columns.
Yeah. It's just the columns. Yeah. It's insane.
That's so wild.
It's wild.
And there's something underneath them.
And there's something, is that, foundation. Yeah.
So at the bottom, we probably have huge chambers for approximately 80 meters of width and also of height, 80 meters.
Wow.
On the bottom.
On the bottom.
Yes.
And so what is that? That's like the kind of foundation structure on which the tubes are coming out.
Because we are observing that the tubes are connected to the respective top of this structure. They are connected and goes inside.
Wow.
Also.
So I have to admit, I'm really looking forward to this interview Jesse's going to do with Philip Biondi or whatever this guy named, the Italian guy who found the structures under the pyramids. I love it. I'm all about it. He's working with the military. We can't talk about that. Oh, God. Okay, here we go again with that, but whatever. But it kind of explained why that would be useful, right? Trying to find real people in real bunkers to save people. But, like, what kind of, is the Italian military, like, out doing special forces missions I don't know about? You know what I mean? Anyway, this is such a fascinating thing. Like, what's under the pyramids? You know, we're talking kilometers deep. Like, what the hell? You know, this came out like, I think in May or April of earlier this year. And I covered this as well. It was absolutely fascinating. I did an interview with Jay Anderson from Project Unity about it. And it's a fascinating discovery, right? There are some people saying it's bullshit. It's this, it's that, because he's using a new type of system to sort of look. But I mean, let's investigate. All right, so now it's time to move on to the Book of Enoch.
Rep Luna, you know, she came on my podcast too, and she was telling me some stuff that was just like mind blowing. And she really got me to read the Book of Enoch. She's like, you got to read that.
So you have the Ethiopian Orthodox text, which has, I think, 88 books of the Bible in total. But in the Ethiopian Orthodox text, it's basically kind of like a mainline OG version of the Bible. And then sometime in the 4th century, there was actually a group that came together and they removed certain books. And the story goes that Revelations actually had replaced Enoch. And so it's interesting because when you're looking kind of full circle on, you know, you hear the stuff that some of these people are talking about, and then you see and you read the Book of Enoch, which is a wild read, okay? And then you look at kind of what our modern day description is of what angels and entities are versus what Enoch was seeing and reporting in his language and ability at that time. I think that there's a lot that brings you to then ask the question, well, why would they remove this information? If it's truly, you know, written in part of the oldest Bible in the world, why would they then take it out?
And that could have easily been attached to the religious canon. But some rabbis disagreed with it because it didn't vibe with the Torah. So, like, let's chuck that one out.
So it's very interesting that Joe Rogan has Representative Luna on his show, and that makes him look into the Book of Enoch. And the Book of Enoch is fascinating. And it's especially fascinating in how it connects in the UFO community, right? That people basically think that's our history. That's what really happened. I'm not really that convinced, and people use it with like codes and mysteries and cloak and dagger. I'm gonna leave you some breadcrumbs of the Book of Enoch so you can find it. And this, it's just like, just come out and say what you mean. Enough with this bullshit. We already have enough bullshit to get through. Like, it's just like, just talk about it. Just say that's what you think is happening, right? I don't want to name any names here, but maybe you know who I'm talking about. There's some whistleblowers out there that love to leave these little breadcrumbs and stuff. It's just like, honestly, I find it ridiculous if you ask me, but that doesn't mean that the Book of Enoch isn't something worth looking into. It's a fascinating story, and its history is fascinating, and the Bible itself is fascinating, and how it was put together, how it was written, you know, and especially when you consider what the Book of Enoch is about, it's definitely interesting.
What are you talking about? The Watchers came down and they mated with humans and they created a race that was a giant race that destroyed everything and consumed everything. That sounds like us. Doesn't that sound like us? If you're some flimsy, tiny alien thing with no musculature and a large head, and you make giants, you make football players, you make marauding Vikings, that are just showing up in boats and hacking everybody to pieces. That's how you would describe them.
Yep.
You would describe them giants that destroyed everything.
Yes.
It's all very weird stuff, man.
That's basically the gist of the story. I mean, there's way more. I highly recommend you look into it if you want. It's, again, a very fascinating story. Now, let's move on to another topic that I think you're going to find very, very interesting.
And now we have 3-fingered mummies in Peru.
That episode that you did was probably my favorite because that, out of all the stories, oh my God, the craft came over the base. Like, those are all cool. Those are all cool. Yes. But man, when you guys did those scans of those tridactyl, whatever they are, alien looking things, and you see the ligaments and the bones and the tendon structure, and you're like, okay, that's a real thing. Like, this is a real being.
Yes.
Now that we know that these they physically exist, well, they can be studied. Like, you could take some genes from them. We could find out what these things are,
I think that's being done.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I'm very excited about it. I don't want to telegraph it too much because Peru just put up a bill saying that you can't study ancient biological specimens, probably in a response to this video we made. And so,
but why? This is the question. Who would look at those tridactyl mummies and not go, oh my God, we need to get our brightest minds on this, because this seems to be evidence of a different kind of life form that might have existed with us. So if this thing existed with us, and we do think that there is some sort of a breakout civilization that lives in the ocean, well, we know that these things were real. And these are the things that people keep seeing. They keep seeing these slender things with big heads and large eyes, which is exactly what that tridactyl mummy looks like. Like, we might have actual evidence that there's another species that shares this planet with us.
And it's crazy. I think there's like a syndrome you get when you're used to the campfire stories, the ephemeral stories, where when the thing is staring you in the face, you don't believe it.
What was it like?
It was insane. I mean, it was. I was trying to, like, I think it broke my brain a little bit. I think this whole year's been like a process of my brain breaking a little bit. It was like an affront to like everything I'm used to seeing, and even me, because I like systematically, like you, like look into these things. But like being there was freaky. And it's funny, like, maybe this is a trippy, weird statement, but like I got sick for like a few weeks after that. And actually Brigham Bueller, who I love, who introduced us, like resuscitated me before your podcast.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it almost felt like just being around that. I don't think I got some weird alien virus, but like it was like it broke my like ego or something. Like I was like, I couldn't believe it.
Well, probably just the stress of it all.
Yeah.
Of encountering an actual mummy of a life form that seems to be exactly like the beings from Close Encounters.
100%. And feeling so unqualified, being like, why am I here? Like with these people, like this feels so weird. Like it's this vigilante, like, ragtag team of like me and my friends.
I think that's how it happens.
You think it's
yeah. I think you and I and Danny and all these people, they're like, why are people paying attention to me? I think that's better than someone who goes forth with this idea that they're super important and they're the ones that are going to break the story.
Yes.
They're the ones that are going to get the scoop.
Yes.
Yeah.
That always backfires.
Yeah.
It's like such bad energy. Yeah.
It's bad energy. Yeah. It's a bad intention. Like you're going into it with the wrong intentions.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the mummies, right? The Nazca mummies. A lot of people think it's bullshit. There's a lot of people who think it's legitimate. And I have actually been working on a video for a couple months now about the Nazca mummies that I will be releasing very soon. I interviewed 3 people directly connected with the mummies, okay? A Mexican doctor, a Peruvian doctor, and the journalist who began this whole thing, Joyce Mantilla, right? And I also did a lot of research, a lot of digging, and I found some interesting things for sure. And I'm going to be putting out that video very soon, so be on the lookout for that, because it's not like any other video about the Nazca mummies you've seen. So Jesse's documentary was fantastic, right? And he's sold on the Nazca mummies. He's sold on it, at least thinking it deserves more research. But I think he does believe these are, you know, real, right? That they're other beings, not human, right? Or that broke off and are different humans, or what, you know, there's a lot of theories there, but that these aren't hoaxes. But again, I found some research and I found some red flags that aren't really covered in videos, and any videos I've seen. Even Jesse doesn't cover them in his documentary, but granted, he went down and looked at them in person, so I haven't got to do that, although I have been invited to go look at them, and that may happen next year. But, you know, I'm actually really proud of the video I'm going to be putting together, because I found out something about the mummies that no one is talking about, and that's that they're alive. There are live mummies running around, according to people directly connected with this. So that's something I'm going to be covering. And I got a chance to ask one of the main doctors working on this all about that. All right. So I'm going to be covering that and much more in my video. So be on the lookout for that. In the meantime, go check out Jesse's documentary about the Nazca mummies. It's an absolutely production, put together production. It's so amazing. Great job to Jesse. And he went down there and in person to investigate this. So check it out. All right. So now it's time to move on to the last topic of this video, which, considering my last name, I feel like I have a direct connection to this. I see, my last name is Armstrong. And who was the first person to walk on the moon? Neil Armstrong. Now, when I was a kid, I used to tell people he was my uncle. He's not. But, you know, when I was in elementary school, I used to tell people he was my uncle. And, you know, hey, we landed on the moon, right? Well, many people think we did it.
You know, Danny just hosted the #1 moon landing hoax debunker, Bart Seibel, who you have an amazing episode with, and one of the last living Apollo astronauts, Charlie Duke, who's 90 years old, and they went at it.
Yeah, I know. Danny texted me clips.
Same.
He also told me that now he's convinced we didn't go to the moon.
Dude, he said that to me too. He was like, I think maybe they were MK Ultra to think they went to the moon, because he just kept, apparently Charlie Duke just kept saying the same thing, which is like, I'm telling you how to bring back 200 pounds of moon rocks.
We spent 72 hours on the moon. We brought back 200 pounds of moon rocks, or thereabouts. Where did 200 pounds of moon rocks come from?
I was just showing you. Von Braun picked him up from Antarctica. There's a picture of that on the web, picking up lunar meteorites before he went to the moon for the first time. Seems like a weird use of his time. Moon rocks have proven to be fake. And according to a contractor that I spoke to at length, he says NASA has ceramics labs which can mimic moon rocks.
Well, I walked on the moon. I don't know about anybody else, but
John Young. You keep saying that. We know that. We've been saying it for 56 years, and you're not going to admit your guilt. Nobody who was, brought to trial for
we're just trying to
crime ever admitted
we're going
their guilt
through
either.
Each piece of evidence and trying to rationally analyze what it means and let the audience decide.
So Danny Jones did already post that interview, and I'm going to be making a video about that next. And it is fascinating for sure what they go back and forth on. I have to admit, I'm not sold yet. I do think we landed on the moon. I'm pretty sure of it. But it's still interesting to think about, right? Because a lot of points do get brought up that are like, need more answers.
Look, there's a bunch of people that were involved in the moon landing that wound up dying. One of them, I wish I could remember his name. I used to be like knee deep into this every day, and I used to be able to remember this guy's name. But this guy was hired by NASA. You'll probably find his name. He was hired by NASA to give an assessment of what the probability of their success was. And he said NASA was in such complete disarray, and the moon landing program was so dysfunctional that there was no chance that they were going to get to the moon in 5 years. That guy parked his car on a train track with his family inside of it.
No.
And died. Yeah.
Then exactly 1 week after he testified, Barron's car was struck by a train. Barron, his wife, and stepdaughter were killed instantly.
And that 500-page report vanished.
No way.
Yep. Nobody ever saw it again.
And who does that with their family if they're not coerced? Like, taking
I don't
yourself out
think
is
they-
one
I don't
thing.
think he did that. I think they killed him.
That's
I think they
100%.
killed him and they
yeah.
killed his family and they put him on this fucking train track. Well, it was either his family or his wife. I forget what it was, but
Jesus.
Yeah, we wrote a 500-page report on what disarray NASA was in, and they killed him. And Gus Grisham's family to this day believes that they murdered him because he was saying that the program was a lemon.
They said the CIA was on the landing pad right after he did that little press conference thing. And yeah.
I mean, what's up with this? It's like we always hear about this. People come out, talk against something, and then somehow miraculously lose their life, right? In some mysterious circumstance. And then people are like, oh, you're so conspiratorial. Okay, but why does that always happen? Journalists look into things and then they just mysteriously pass away. That happened with MK Ultra too, right? It just is all these weird things. I mean, with a lot of things, right? But this is so strange, right? So strange. And what happened to this report?
And then you have the fact that Neil Armstrong, his second mission when he's back on land was to this thing, the Teos Cave. Have you heard of this? Do you know what this is?
No.
In 1975, he brought a BBC film crew to explore what he thought was, maybe an alien cave at the edge of the Amazon in Ecuador. This had been in the lore for like many years. In fact, Eric Von Daniken, who we both had lunch with, talks about this in The Chariots of the Gods. Is like, it's this cave that contains ancient alien metallic artifacts.
Whoa.
So I think it's so fascinating that Neil Armstrong, who presumably you'd think would be dogmatically opposed to aliens, like wouldn't be into this at all. Like you think of Edgar Mitchell as the only Apollo astronaut who's into aliens.
Right.
His second mission is on land trying to find this Teos Cave with this crew. It's so trippy.
And this is fascinating. I'll be covering this more in my video about Danny Jones on my next video. That Neil Armstrong went looking for this alien cave. Like, what the hell? Like, that is so strange. And again, I'm going to be digging more into that on the next video.
What was the biggest moon rock that you brought back?
Big Muley I picked up. Go left. Is that Big Muley?
Moon
We
rocks.
picked up that one, Big Muley.
Okay.
On
Yeah,
the
it
right.
looks absolutely nothing like the petrified wood on the left.
No.
So the moon rocks thing is, what people have always used as like proof that we went, right? But of course, Bart, who's clearly against us having landed on the moon, uses that, turns it around and uses it against him, right? Here's another clip too.
David Percy, a cinematographer, award-winning BBC cinematographer, said they took a photograph from an unmanned satellite and they had like a positive, or kind of like an X-ray, but a color print that was translucent, and they put it over the window. The camera was never up against the glass. It was at the back of the spacecraft. They closed the iris down so that the walls became black, and here they are removing part of the effect in front of the window.
Would it be that bright?
Yeah.
130,000 miles away. If that window was facing the Earth
No,
at 130,000 miles out, is that how bright it would be?
It's facing more to the sun than the Earth.
Well, the video's claiming, according to the video, Neil is saying that that's the Earth.
That wouldn't be the Earth.
That would not be the
That
Earth.
picture's not the Earth.
No.
Well, it is the Earth. That's the reflection off of the Earth.
Because I'm also a cinematographer, and I would say that window, that's probably the color of the window, and the sun is, can you see this mouse? Yeah, the sun is probably somewhere over here poking through. You can see these rays shooting in right there.
I mean, again, it's worth considering. It's worth having these questions answered. And that I wasn't too confident with what just happened in that little exchange, right? Like, no, that's not the Earth. And then it's like, no, that is the Earth. Wait, what? That's like, what's going on, right? They fake that too. Like, this almost seems so impossible to fake, to be honest with you, right? That seems like a harder sell to me, that they faked. I get that people are finding strange things about it. I get that. But it's like you're adding up a lot and filling in a lot of gaps to say that we faked landing on the moon. Not just once, but many times. We went back to the moon many times. A lot of astronauts, more than one, walked on the moon, right? I don't know. I mean, we faked them all? Or maybe we just faked the first one. Maybe it's somewhere in the middle. I don't know. But again, being an Armstrong, it's going to take a lot to convince me that we didn't land on the moon, because I love that, hey, the first person to walk on another body outside of Earth was an Armstrong. Yeah, pretty proud of that. But man, if that turns out to be BS, I'm going to be severely disappointed.
I invest in space stuff, and like I have a lot of friends in that world, and like they are adamant that we went to the moon. There's supposedly like, lunar imagery that, of the landing site, the Apollo landing site. But it's hard to say. I mean, there's a lot of weird stuff too. You were talking about the flammability of, for example, hyperbaric chambers.
Yeah.
There's that whole Gus Grissom, the guy who was supposed to walk on the moon, who they reversed the doors and then they made it 100% oxygen. Then he blew up inside the thing.
Also, Gus Grissom had hung a lemon on a hanger. He hung a lemon on a coat hanger outside of that thing because he said, we can't even communicate with the tower. How are we ever going to communicate when we're in space?
He was so frustrated, he kept complaining up the chain of command they wouldn't fix anything, because the higher-ups knew they weren't going to go and hadn't committed yet to faking it, and therefore hadn't told the astronauts yet. And in his fury, without permission, he held a press conference. He invited in a bunch of reporters to the top of the rocket, where he affixed a lemon the size of a grapefruit on a coat hanger. He said, this thing is a lemon, a piece of junk, made the evening news. And a few days later, he dies. His wife told me that on January 26, 1967, he came home from work and said the following: "Hun, for some strange reason, the CIA is all over the launch pad today. I wonder why they're here inspecting the equipment. Never seen him here before." He's dead the very next day from faulty equipment.
So crazy.
This is what I say to people that think this is all foolish. Watch the Apollo 11 post-flight press conference. Watch it. It's like a hostage video.
Mm-hmm.
It's three guys that look like they're completely full of shit. They look nervous. They're fumbling. It's interesting. There's a guy online who is he's a body language expert, and he watched it and gave his notes on it. He's like, these guys are clearly being deceptive. Like, they're being deceptive. They're being deceptive. They're uncomfortable. They don't like that they have to do this. The way Neil Armstrong is describing the flight is so fucking bizarre. And then he gives this speech 25 years later at the anniversary of the moon landing to all the brightest high school kids. And he says,
there are great ideas undiscovered, breakthroughs available to those who can remove one of truth's protective layers.
Yeah, like, what does that mean?
And, that part is definitely talked about a lot. Again, there are a lot of questions that need to be answered, right? And things that Neil Armstrong says afterwards. There's a lot of evidence of, like, afterwards, how they acted, right? That people find strange, right? Neil Armstrong going to look for this alien cave, then the speech that Joe Rogan brings up that Neil Armstrong says. But that's not enough for me to be like, oh, that means we didn't land on the moon, right? Yeah, that may be strange, but a lot of people do strange shit. I don't know, right? Maybe, but they also say there's also conspiracies that they went there and astronauts saw aliens on the moon, right? We covered that up. It's like, well, which is it? Did we land on the moon or did we see aliens on it? Like, aren't there alien bases, right? And then you got Dan Farrow talking about in the Age of Disclosure that we've reverse engineered alien technology and we're out flying in spaceships through space, right? Through space. We're flying spaceships, alien spaceships. So like, we couldn't have landed on the moon. We had alien technology back then, right? So again, it seems like once you start bringing out all these conspiracies, a lot of them just don't add up together. They don't fit together. So it's like you got to pick and choose, right? But I will admit this next part is interesting, but I don't know if it's enough for me.
In the press conference, clearly says we couldn't see any stars. We couldn't see any stars.
We were never able to see stars from the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon.
by eye without looking through the optics. I don't recall during the period of time that we were photographing the solar corona what stars we could see.
I don't remember seeing any.
Then in his own book, which I think he wrote in 1994, he talks about how magnificent the stars were.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, fuckface, you weren't even supposed to be on the moon. Okay? You were up there. They were on the moon. Like, did you forget? Like, what? I don't recall seeing any stars. Well, you're in the fucking thing. Did you remember the script? You're in the thing. You're not on the ground. The intersecting shadows, people like to try to dismiss them. They say, oh, well, it could be because of the topography, and it could also be more than one light source, and that's more likely. When you got a shadow going like this and a shadow going like that, well, we know we went to the moon, so let's come up with another explanation. Let's not assume we went to the moon, and let's look at that and say, is that the sun, or is that multiple light sources at close range? It seems like there's a hot spot. It seems like there's multiple light sources at close range. And then there's videos that clearly show some sort of a reflection of wires when they're bouncing around on the moon's surface. If you speed it up, it looks preposterous because it looks like they're just in slow-mo. There's videos that it looks like they're bouncing around on trampolines. The physics are not the same in Apollo 11 as they are on Apollo 15 and 16. All of a sudden, they can cover great distances. They're doing these weird, giant, long leaps that they weren't doing before. The whole thing's weird. It's
really
also
weird.
during a time where they were completely full of shit about everything.
You had 3 networks.
They lied about the Gulf of Tonkin incident that led us into Vietnam. They lied about who killed JFK. They lied about everything.
MK Ultra.
Everything. Charles Manson. Everything was bullshit. All of it was bullshit. Operation Northwoods. There was all these things that were going on at the same time. So it's like they were more than accustomed to lying. Why would they tell the truth and nothing but the truth about this one thing?
And the Gemini 15 photo, I think, as you pointed out, is verifiably fake.
Yes.
So we know that they did fake.
Explain what that photo was.
Do you want to explain it?
Well, it's Michael Collins, and it's Michael Collins purportedly doing a spacewalk. But really, it was a training mission where they had him strapped in these harnesses, and they just blacked out the background and pretended he was in space.
And we know that.
We know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Yes.
So we know they were lying. We also know, I don't know if you watched my episode with Bart, but Bart has this footage of where they're running images of the Apollo photographs through AI to detect whether or not they've been manipulated.
Play the clip, D27, where Putin was at this conference, the AI conference of 2 years ago in Moscow. They were allowed to play with this AI that's not available to the public, 10 AIs scrolled together, and it said the Apollo pictures were fake.
То есть почти все объекты на этом фото ей кажутся ненастоящими. В то же время вот фотография китайского лунохода у нее особенных вопросов не вызывает.
А это то, что кажется не настоящим?
Да, вот то, что красное.
Десятка гугловская, не наша. Так, чтобы не было предвзятости никакой.
So there will be no bias. It's surprising, but it does believe so. The neural network has analyzed a lot of data, including light and dark contrast, etc. And then it believes the photo is synthetic.
I saw that. And Putin is looking at the video, and he's like not surprised that checks out as fake.
My friend who was from Russia said that in high school, they were teaching that the moon landing was a hoax.
No way.
Yes.
Whoa.
Yes. Now, I don't know if that was just one cool teacher that was like, bro, I saw this documentary.
Yeah.
Or if it was like standard that they would teach that the moon landing was bullshit.
All right, so they can't see stars from the moon. I mean, I honestly can't explain that. I'm not a scientist or an astronaut. But it is interesting how the things don't line up that they're saying, right? Love, the stars are beautiful. And then you're like, I never saw any stars. Wait, which is it? Right? And I agree that press conference is strange, right? And they said the body expert looked at it and they were being weird and deceptive. But there could be so many reasons for that. Again, not conclusive enough for me, but maybe when you add it all up, I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm going to be covering this tomorrow or in my next video about, the moon landing and diving into all this, because this debate on Danny Jones' podcast, honestly, is fascinating. All right, betters, I hope you enjoyed today's video and Jesse Michel's interview with Joe Rogan. It's absolutely fascinating. There's so much more that I didn't cover. I highly recommend watching all of it. It's honestly a great conversation. It just goes back to the good old days when we could just sit and bullshit and talk about UFOs, aliens, conspiracies, and just have fun with it, right? Not take it too seriously. Just have fun with it. Explore these thoughts, these ideas, these same conversations you would have, you know, at the dinner table with your friends or around a campfire or, you know, just drinking some beers and playing darts and bullshitting with your friends, right? Like, I miss those kind of conversations, just kind of having a little fun with it. And I think that's exactly what happened in this conversation. And I really enjoyed it. And again, shout out to Jesse, great new set that he has. I love his whole way to show clips and everything, right? Like he's got this whole thing going now and it's really great. And his first interviews with Joe Rogan, come on, y'all. Joe Rogan doesn't do a lot of interviews, so that's great that Jesse got him. So again, link in the description. Go check out the full interview. We'll see you guys on the next one. Remember, Vedas, every day's a gift, y'all. Peace.
Patrick, hey, my name is Brad. I am also a member of Discord and one of your big supporters. First off, just wanted to leave you a message to really thank you for all the fantastic work that you do. I look forward to your daily posts. You know, it's a rare thing for someone's personality actually comes through, the quality of information comes through. So I see why you have such a loyal following. I hope you hit 100,000. On a personal note, man, you know, I've been like you, just in this space, watching it, you know, for many, many years. I have a background in math and science, and I'm working on a little bit of a project, and I'll share it with you on the Discord and some other people I've already shared it with. But I'm basically building out, one of my friends referred to it, it's almost like a Drake equation for formalized investigation of anomalous phenomenon, because I couldn't find that anybody had done this. And I will just close it. I have now drifted pretty much into the skeptic category on all of this. And I see you kind of going through a very similar curve in real time. But when you start to put it into like formalized math and the meta probabilities, and it just makes it scream out to me more that none of this is probably aliens. You know, it isn't what the fact pattern would look like if that were true. So, interesting project. I'm Braddery, Bardery, on Discord. I think I sent you a friend request, but I don't, for obvious reasons, you might not be taking it. But anyway, brother, happy holidays. I hope Spain is going well. I hope the pups have adjusted. I'm also a dog guy, too. But I look forward to sharing with you the research I'm doing here, just to try to formalize some of this stuff. And of course, you know, get your feedback on it, too. Keep up the great work and have a great holiday season. Bye-bye.